So Tanzania was politically a black box for me until the recent abductions of
Boniface
and Agatha. I really didn't know much about Tanzanian political. I mean, you hear a little bit in the news.
Yes.
And I think the idea was that they're polite. I always used to say, Tanzanians are just really polite compared to Kenyans.
That has been exposed.
And once that happened, I said, oh my God.
Yes.
The absence of war is not peace.
Exactly.
Yes.
I was like, this is insane.
What? Even the idea, unaona kama Tanzania, where Tanzania is today is where Kenya was in the 90s.
Yeah.
Tanzania does not have an independent
IEBC.
electoral commission. Tanzania does not have, so it's whatever the government says.
Yeah.
Tanzania does not have an independent judiciary. It is, it's still controlled
you
by
can
the
try an
president.
opposition leader for treason.
Yes, you
Yeah.
can
The
try an
president
opposition
controls
leader for treason.
the Supreme Court justice.
Yeah. Story paid protesters, paid goons. This is another thing that we've also seen. It's another tactic that the government is employing, whereby we were seeing that there's legit protesters on the streets, but then there's other guys carrying rungus. I remember back in the day, because unajua me when I was nilikuwa mdogo, me street action ilikuwa ni yangu. There was a group called Kamjesh. I don't know if you guys remember Kamjesh.
Nakumbuka Kamjesh, tulipigana nao sana.
So Kamjesh walikuwa ni goons wa Moi. The Wamoi's goons. So this thing is not new. Hii kitu ya goonery is not new with Sakaja. It's just that Sakaja, I don't think Sakaja properly understands the science of goonery.
Ngumi ni mbwekse. And by the way, Sakaja is a Chenjeria.
Changes to Lenana, right? Lenana school.
An embarrassment to Lenana.
Oh, by the way, Ngumi ni mbwekse. Ali, hold on.
Ali, just take your nini.
Ali.
No,
Ali, Ngumi ni mbwekse.
We're offering him to Nairobi school.
Well, no. Ngumi ni mbwekse.
No, we're offering him to Nairobi school.
Ngumi ni mbwekse.
We're offering him to Nairobi school.
No.
Yeah.
We're not going to accept
Ali.
Sakaja, I don't think he properly understood.
What do you think he failed?
The science of
where did he fail?
Of goonery. No, his people, like Kamjesh was so effective. The good thing about being in street action back in the day as kids, they were not bothered with kids. So, and with kids you have an innocence where you're going out, there's kuna rabsha huko, kuna chaos, watu wanapigwa na nini, but wewe you're out there,
unapenya,
you want to see the action.
Wale waliko kwanza wanakupea mawe urushe.
So those guys, by the way, wanakupatia mawe saa zingine, wanakupatia mawe na kuambia rushia wale watu. But they were so effective, they knew when to come, they would come and they would do their work so quick and they would go.
What is work?
Their work is to, for example, if you have a political rival, and they're holding a rally, and this political rival is popular, and you want to go to disrupt it. In fact, back in those days, there was something called Mlolongo. I think you guys are not familiar with what. So Mlolongo, actually Kanu had a Mlolongo system until 2002 nominations. They were still doing Mlolongo. So Mlolongos during nomination day, Sheila unakuja, na we Joy unakuja on nomination day, mnasimama hapo. Then
behind your candidate.
Then your candidates, then your people who are voting for you, they stand on a line. Whoever has the longer line wins. So what used to happen, and don't ask me how I know this, what used to happen is they would pay people when they know that it's about that time to be counted. So si line yako Sheila ndo iko na watu wengi, na line ya Joy iko na watu kidogo. So now people would go, goons would place themselves strategically in your line. Now, right before, minutes before, like it's called, they all unleash whips. And there are different parts of the line. They unleash whips, wanaanza kuchapa watu. And they're like, so it's like, kuna hapa moja mwanzo, katikati, like in every 10 people.
He was one of the whippers.
So when the whips come out, people are running. Now when the people run, the counting is being done. And that's in one line. So now Joy, the candidate who had fewer people on the line, becomes the winner because all your people wamekimbia. That's why I'm saying
Yeah.
vitu vimetoka mbali sana.
Sana.
Yeah. Ballot boxes used to be black in color. Black. Unaona black like this. These transparent ballot boxes, this is a recent thing. So what used to happen, ballot box inaingia and then it already has votes inside. No, it already has votes inside. So nyinyi mnapiga kura, you know, like for example, Sheila is a popular candidate, mnapiga kura, and you know, we know that popular, but when zinamwagwa zinahesabiwa, Joy ndo akona kura nyingi because it was the provincial administration. There was no IEBC. There was no electoral commission. Our wanaitwa, now they're called regional commissioners and those are the ones who used to run elections.
Yeah.
And this is as recently
So
as
people
the
in
90s.
government used to be there.
Yes. So that's why I'm saying
Actually not 90s, 2002 election ilikuwa hivyo.
until 2002 elections there were still black ballot boxes that were being
So Kibaki won under that.
The reason why Kibaki won is because it was overwhelming.
The whole opposition came
There
together.
was-
It
Like
was
in
so
the-
No
overwhelming.
arguing.
So anytime when the gap is small, and that's the reason why to defeat Ruto, there has to be someone who can garner 60%.
And then
Because these close elections.
remember
Mika.
remember for Kibaki to win, you remember that day of voting, everybody was like, vijana laleni na kura, msiende nyumbani, stay in the polling stations. And actually, what most people don't realize, our millennials when they were young, year 2002, we slept at the polling station to count kura, like like we were counting hapo ikikauntiwa. So
I was
that
in
is
Congolese
another thing that
primary.
most people don't usually highlight about 2002. But if the youth in 2002 had not slept in polling stations, that election could have been rigged.
Yes, it would have been rigged. And that's why I'm saying we've come from a very long we've come from a very far place, and that's why I'm saying, you know, like even the idea, unaona kama Tanzania, where Tanzania is today is where Kenya was in the 90s.
Yeah.
Tanzania does not have an independent
IEBC.
electoral commission. Tanzania does not have so it's whatever the government says.
Yeah.
Tanzania does not have an independent judiciary. You know, like it is it's still controlled
You
by
can
the
try an
president.
opposition leader for treason.
Yes, you
Yeah.
can
The
try an
president
opposition
controls
leader for
the Supreme Court justice.
yeah.
So Tanzania was politically a black box for me until the recent abductions of
Boniface Mwangi.
Boniface and
Yeah.
Agatha.
And Agatha.
I really
yes.
didn't know much about Tanzanian political. I mean, you know, you hear a little bit in the news,
Yes.
and I think the idea was that they're polite. I always used to say, oh, Tanzanians are just really polite compared to Kenyans.
that has
And
been
so-
exposed.
And once that happened, I said, oh my God,
Yes.
The absence
I
of
s-
war is not peace.
exactly.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
was like, this is insane.
At a what?
The absence of war is not peace.
And actually
Ateweta watia.
and that's called
The absence of war is not peace, because just because things are quiet things are quiet in Tanzania because they're being managed. Today I was watching some speaker speak in Tanzania, and he was telling people that we need to reserve our peace, we need to support our president, because if we don't support our president, we'll move backwards. You know, like there's a lot of government propaganda that's coming out that's saying,
Suppression,
if you don't support our government, we will be very far behind.
it's called weaponization of peace.
That one.
So weaponization of peace, Moi was very, very effective at using that tool, and would always call people who want multi-party politics as seditionists, as watu ambao wanataka kuleta uchochezi.
Treasonous.
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 Ruto's language.
Treasonous.
Treason.
Exactly.
They were
Do
Yeah.
you know
Ruto's
how
language.
many people were nini? How
Ruto's
many
language.
people during Moi's time were actually charged with treason? Kina Wangamati,
Yes.
Shikuku,
Yes.
Koigi.
You know,
Moi.
I remember the time when I wrote that essay. That thing was such a big deal at home, you know, and I don't know how. And the funny thing is, I was in Moi school. I went to Moi Educational Center in primary, in South Sea. So that thing became such a big deal. Nyumbani, Nyumbani. I remember my uncle. You know, my uncles were being called from
Takuharibia
Mombasa.
watu
Na
kazi
nini.
huyu.
It was such a big. It was so bad because.
Do you
at that
remember what
time-
you wrote? Or do you even have a sample? Did you
You
say
should
I
have
think,
kept
I
it.
think, I think,
Can you
my mom,
recreate
I
it?
think
Should have
my
been
mom still has a
framed.
copy.
Yeah, you should have
and I
framed
wanna
it.
get it.
Yeah.
Can you recreate
Because we
it?
would like to. It would be
Yeah.
interesting. It would be nice to see what you wrote because.
Yeah.
Huyu
Kujua
We might-
hivyo.
yeah.
Author ya Mwakenya huyu.
Yeah, I think my mom still has a copy, and
Hi, Ali, are you sure she kept a copy?
I think so. And I'm
Ask
you know,
her.
I'm gonna,
Because
I'm
you
gonna
know
ask
that
her.
was seditious, bana.
I'm gonna ask
Those
her.
are seditious,
That's
what they call
evidence.
seditious publications.
And let me tell you, the school that I went
AKA
to,
Mwakenya.
the school I went to, all ministers, Kalonzo's kids were there. Remember, Kalonzo was already a minister at that time.
Correct, yes.
Kalonzo's kids were there. Mudavadi's kids were there. You know, like all ministers and all PSs would bring their kids there, and then you know, like the teachers were wives of wives of permanent secretaries. You know, like that was the environment.
Ilikuwa
Yeah.
system.
Yeah, I'm not even I don't even know whether I'm supposed to say this, but remember, like the people who were involved in Goldenberg,
Yes.
they were
Yes,
just they
yes,
were
yes.
just busy interacting with them every day. So that thing became such a big deal because nakumbuka hiyo kitu, there were some teachers who liked me and they were able to suppress it, but it became such a big deal at home because back in those days it was treasonous to think about
Correct.
to think about
To
the
even
death
to
Revolution,
yes,
yeah.
to write
Yeah.
anything that was against.
yes
Yes, you could not.
Forget posting a picture
yes
or an AI image.
yeah
Or
just thinking
just thinking
Just the
about
thought.
it.
yeah
Your parents could even know that you've thought about it. Na unapigwa.
yeah just
Unajua kuna
thinking.
siku mimi na bro wangu tunapiga story, tunaona news alafu tukasema kiki msee kiupenda tu kudalia lift kwa gari za wase. We hehe tulamwenene mlale karibu tuchapo hiyo siku. Unajua hiki kimsee ilikuwa ni moi. Unajua vile alikuwa anafunguliwa gari anaingia anafunguliwa.
Yes.
Vitu mekaa hivi ndio naambia bro hiki kimsee lakini kiupenda tu kupewa lift kwa gari za wase. Kwani ni nani? We Yes, go to the who's your tulipandishwa GHC, basic GHC. Who's your president? Who's your MP? Who's your provincial commissioner? Who's your DO? Sasa hiyo unajua kiamba who's your MP? Baba Karanja kwanza alikuwa neighbor wetu, kumbe ni Mwenje. Unafaa kusema David Mwenje. Hizo siku
Yeah, so-
like we were robots. We
Yeah.
were being programmed on how to respond
Act
and to live.
respond.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the reason why I'm saying, you know, like it's important to also acknowledge the granular gains
Yeah.
that we've gotten over time.
Important.
And I think part of the issue with Kibaki's era, there was a lull because Kibaki was such a different leader. People thought that we can never go back to where
yeah.
Moi was.
Yep.
But unfortunately, Ruto reminded us that that's always very close.
Possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. The